strengthening business relationships between not only Norway and Ukraine, but Europe and Ukraine.
We're going to have a very interesting session here now. We're going to
reflect upon the experiences that were made during these 2 days, and also discuss what might be the possible steps.
Norwegian-Ukrainian Chambers of Commerce, Mr. Kjakan.
Thank you. Thank you, Goethe. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today. I will briefly go through a little bit about the trade relations that are currently between Norway and Ukraine. We have to look ahead, but it's also interesting to see what is going on right now. Just 2 words on who we are. The Chamber, we are a non-profit, non-political member organization, and we have approximately 140 members now, and 60% of them are actually Ukrainian, so we're a truly bilateral Chamber of Commerce. We have identified specific sectors where we see that, in particular, a high potential, and that's IT, professional services, manufacturing, seafood and agriculture, and energy and infrastructure. And of course, now also recover and rebuild. I did want to show you a little bit on the trade statistics, because one could imagine that the trade was heavily affected in 2022, but in reality, in the trade of goods, it was actually down 1%. And so far this year, it's up an impressive 45%, the new statistics today. And the most important, also most positive here is also that the Ukrainian export is up 80%. So this shows the resilience of the Ukrainian economy, the Ukrainian businesses. They deliver on orders, and we need to continue to buy Ukrainian products and Ukrainian services. If we look into more specifics, Ukraine really enjoy eating Norwegian seafood. So as you can see here, and although it was down quite a lot in the first or third or second quarter of 2022, you can see that, of course, weapon and ammunition is also an important sector, defense sector, that will be also important in the years to come. Just to show you the, again, resilience of the Ukrainian economy is that even though it was a dramatic drop in the first months after the re-invasion, you can see that it went up to practically stable just 3-4 months afterwards. You can see that this is continuing to grow. If you look at the Norwegian imports from Ukraine, that's a much more diversified picture, heavily focused on manufactured items, very small on agriculture. Very important and very positive development also here. The dark blue here is Ukrainian agricultural products going to Norwegian fish feed. Norway is the second largest exporter of seafood in the world, only surpassed by China. So the Norwegian salmon need high quality vegetable products into its fish feed. Ukraine is very well positioned to take a big part of this. This is maybe a tenth of its potential, but now it has finally started to roll. Up until now, we have been dependent on Russian and Belarus and Brazilian, and also some Canadian, but the opportunity to produce soy or rapeseed or other vegetable products in Europe, non-GMO, closer to home, this is something we truly hope and see where Ukraine can balance out the trade balance as of like before.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be speaking in front of you today. I hope everybody had a very productive days at this Ukraine Rebuild conference. The previous speaker touched upon the issues of FDI, investing in Ukraine. Of course, we all understand that nowadays it might be more comfortable for international businesses to engage into new projects in Ukraine through trade initiatives, through tendering procedures which are launched by Ukraine's international partners, let's say international financial institutions or some UN agencies. But for those who had some experience in investing in Ukraine, being present on the ground, or for those who consider potentially expanding their on-the-ground presence into Ukraine, it might be necessary to find a relevant partner. Our organization, Advantage Ukraine, it is first non-for-profit, supported by the U.S. initiatives, USA Competitive Economy Program investment platform, which is operating in a form of public investment bank. So a few words about Advantage Ukraine. It started as an initiative to promote Ukraine as an investment destination across the world. So it was a public campaign launched by the president of Ukraine in September 2022 when he virtually attended New York Stock Exchange with an opening, spreading the message that Ukraine's reconstruction is not something that we need to wait until the war ends. It is an ongoing effort, and those businesses which are getting into Ukraine sooner, well, of course, will be benefiting from it in the long run. Well then, as the campaign succeeded, it transformed into an organization which is bringing together investment bankers, lawyers, and other experts who has significant experience in supporting and promoting investment with Ukraine to get together to collect ready to receive international financing investment project, and of course to market them to international audiences. So if your company might be interested in getting to know what are the best ways to get into Ukraine, to channel your business interests and to step into Ukraine economic opportunities, it might be interesting to get to talk to some of our experts in terms of what are the projects available in the sector of your interest. These projects would be pre-selected. They would be explored in terms of whether they qualify with different criteria set up by, let's say, international financing institutions in terms of whether they're actually ready to receive finance in the form of debt or equity participation. So from agriculture to machinery, from renewable energy to other sectors which Ukraine will be focusing in its reconstruction effort, Advantage Ukraine might be able to provide very extended information about and potentially channel you with relevant project owners. I need to mention that this support that that Advantage Ukraine offers is provided free of charge. As I mentioned, it is an initiative that is working in cooperation with the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine with the support of USA Competitive Economy Program, which is aiming to support business activities, specifically when it comes to Ukraine's recovery. Well, a few words also necessary to mention that coming into Ukraine nowadays, it's important to keep in mind that there are de-risking mechanisms available. Something that we hear a lot about today is political risk insurance schemes, and we hear a lot about MIGA, USDFC, different agencies all across Europe providing some sort of political risk insurance to companies which are looking to not only trade with Ukraine, but also to invest into greenfield projects. And it's good that we are receiving this news, and these are high on the international's agenda. But what is the right way to approach them? How to get this kind of insurance? What is the provisions that they mention when it comes to this insurance? Advantage Ukraine has pre-established relations with these providers. We keep our eye on the developments in terms of who is there to best fit the specific project, how to engage with them, and how to actually get to the point when your project is covered in terms of war risks that are present in Ukraine and definitely will be present for quite a while.
I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Christian Syse, the Norwegian Special Envoy to Ukraine. Please.
Thanks for the invitation. Wonderful. Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce does wonderful work. And I dare say, if it hadn't been for the financial support of the hormone industry, you wouldn't have been here. Which might be well known to some of you, the Norwegian government, with the full support, unanimous support, think about that, unanimous support in Parliament. It happens very rarely. We have now introduced a 5-year program supporting Ukraine in the vicinity of 7 billion euros over the course of 5 years, which is quite substantial, which makes Norway one of the largest single contributors in the world to Ukraine and particularly, of course, related to our size. Well, before we come to the business part, roughly half of it will be military equipment, which is business too. Military training. We have basically depleted some of our stock back home in Norway in order to support Ukraine, and we will continue to do so. This is also part of the Norwegian business community, as Kongsberg Group as well as Nammo will be great beneficiaries of this policy. Militarily, it's a security policy question, not only for Ukraine, but for my country, for all of Europe. Rule of law, and that physical aggression should not pay off. This is why we're here. That was really what I wanted to say. But I will have a few words since I've got 10 minutes in total, 7.5 minutes left. In addition to that, I would dare say even to support that effort, we have a civilian and a humanitarian program as well. Roughly, over the course of the years, half of that €7 billion sum. What do we do with those now? Should we give it directly to the Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce, or to some of the companies that are represented here? With this unanimous support of Parliament again, we invest heavily in the international financial institutions. Some of you, I know, might be, if not critical, then at least questioning. The reasons why we do that, support international financial institutions and the humanitarian fields with big humanitarian international organizations, are many-fold. There are lots and lots of reasons for that. Seen from a Ukrainian perspective, it's much easier to coordinate with a few large international financial institutions than with hundreds of companies, ideal organizations, etc., dawning upon Ukraine. But also, see from our perspective, somebody will have to take care of that coordination. Should the Norwegian government do that? It's better to have the World Bank Group, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the OECD, the OSCE, and other big partners that we believe in to do that. But there is another question too. We believe in the rule of law. That's why we're there too. And we believe in international institutions. We would like to support these international institutions that uphold the rule of law and good governance throughout the world, namely the World Bank Group, the EBRD, and others. That's another reason. It is also easier, now I speak as a public official and not as a politician, but my job is to help the politicians too, on behalf of the taxpayer, basically, that the investments that Norway makes, that they should be, one should be able to follow, to track down where all the monies go. And that is the best way to do when you're dealing with international financial institutions and big humanitarian organizations as well. On the military side, by the way, we cooperate very, very closely within the NATO alliance, what is known as the Ramstein Group, under American leadership, full stop. In the civilian sector, I dare say that coordination is slightly more difficult. I will pose to you some challenges, and that's why I wrote my book. There are some challenges up ahead, I dare say. The obvious one is, of course, Russian perseverance. That the war is going on. It is not. This has not come to an end. But when it comes to the civilian efforts, be that also the humanitarian questions. Coordination. Who coordinates the coordinators? This is not my first Ukraine conference. It will not be my last. The question is always who coordinates the coordinators. What would be to the greatest benefit of Ukraine, and then there's, I dare say, also the world community. Is the big coordinator the G7 group? Would it be in Washington? Would it be in Brussels? Would it be in Kiev itself? I'm an old cynic. I've been too long a time probably in my system. But I think it's good that there are many centers that believe themselves to be the coordinators. That helps politics. Sanctions on Russia, up until now, at least in the Western community of nations, unanimous. That is a challenge in the longer run. And we see that many countries in the world, among them India and China, and others, Turkey, would not adhere to these sanctions challenge. as has already been addressed and will be addressed later on, I'm quite sure, risk mitigation. How does one do that? How does the government of Norway meet the challenge of Norwegian businesses that will operate in Ukraine through risk mitigations? Even we have talked about often, representing the later. How could that be done in an appropriate way? Is the answer to that question World Bank Group's MIGA, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, or the EBRD, or is that too complicated? What about small and medium-sized enterprises? Russian first assets abroad, say the United Kingdom, is extravagantly much. Big amounts. In Germany too, by the way. I dare say that one of the challenges that many Western countries, their businesses, manage to go beyond, outside sanctions, via third countries, such as Lithuania, NATO and EU country, but countries such as Kazakhstan. I think that was also detrimental to our common efforts. And then I might finish up by also addressing the challenges that we understand and appreciate that the government in Kiev is met with, namely that they're completely overworked. There are so many issues to be dealt with: humanitarian, military, civilian, foreign aid, dealing with this, that, and the other government. So we do also understand the capacity question of the Ukrainian government. But anyway, I have been authorized by the government, so to speak, so to say, and the unanimous parliament to say that we're in it for the long run. For the first 5 years, indeed, parliament has already accepted that. But I dare say beyond that as well. Good luck.
We are going to talk a little bit about experiences or impressions from the conference, and a little bit about what we can do going forward. And I would like to invite our panelists. Oleg Kukarenko, that is heading up McKinsey in Ukraine. One of the leaders, okay. Yeah, I'm one of the leaders. We're very happy to have you here, and you have also other experiences that we'll go back to, which are very interesting in this context. Ida Kretsu from Norwegian Confederation Business, and is setting up their international secretariat. Then we have Jon Erik from Itera. And Itera is a company with a big presence in Ukraine, and Jon Erik is one of the very staunch supporters of Ukraine over many years through his work in Itera. We have Bernd Granos from Phoenix Repower, renewable developer and also with many years experience. And then I think we've asked Christoph to sit in the panel as well, and you said that, or you actually want to sit in the panel, and we would like to have you in the panel.
Well, we have a small team in Kiev, and we have a small team in Norway, and that's us. And we came to Kiev, to Ukraine in 2019, building a Suvash wind farm for energy, and we also were working in Melitopol, starting the Sofia wind farm. And since then we have had our office in Kiev even through the whole war. And we have spent those last 2 years converting ourselves to be developers, because we felt first of all, we understood that it's fully possible to do business in Ukraine without malpractice. If you are just a bit patient and properly do your homework, as you say. This is the most important thing in my mind, is that just do it properly. There is no room for big fancy deals at the top level. You have to follow the setup, and then it works. And just like in Norway, there will be somebody somewhere that doesn't like you or wants to get something out of it. Then it stops. And then you just have to be patient. If you start trying something else, of course, anything can happen, like everywhere else. So we find it's fully possible to do proper business in Ukraine, and we now are working to be developers. We have solar and battery and wind projects. I think that what do we need? I think first of all, we have done our homework. I'm 100% sure of it. We have enjoyed the good reputation that Norway has through the work of energy and Itera and Scatec and those champion companies that have behaved well. So we feel it's good support with Norwegians. What we would have liked to see though is that we don't need, I don't think monetary aid is not what we need. we need a bit of protection for those that needs to put money into our projects. Because when you get into energy projects, they are very costly. And no equity in a little company like ours can carry something like that. So you need loans, you need more equity, and you need some form of cover provided by someone. And that is kind of my number one wish. And the second wish, of course, is to continue the good work that I think the Norwegian Foreign Ministry has done, and embassy and the mentioned companies to keep Norway a good player in Ukraine. That's kind of my answer to the question.
We've been in Ukraine since 2008 when I employed the first one, and now we're close to 300 people in Kyiv and Lviv. And the IT sector of Ukraine is really developing well, even during war times. So they have a net growth of, I would guess, approximately 10%. You can help me out, but I think it's in that range. And this is because digital deliverables can be done from anywhere, in the world, even from shelters. And it's possible. And as a crisis management also for my company, we have been doing, quite well. People have survived well. Nobody has been killed, which is the best, the most important. Said that, we believe that we need to engage, I would say, even more. So what Norwegian businesses can do, and everybody else, if you want to get acquainted with how Ukraine works and how the people are, how they speak, how they live, the culture of Ukraine, you should start to invest now. And you should, the lowest, I would say, low-key investment would be to engage in the digital sector. All of you have software development or IT issues that you need to get solved. Every company in the world is, in fact, a digital company. So the easy thing you can do to generate jobs and pay salaries to increase the resilience of this nation of Ukraine, and at the same time you will benefit with super high talented people. And I've seen so many of these people, I recruited them myself, many of them, and they are at such a high level of European and world standard from the universities across Ukraine. So what you can do to help this nation now, while you prepare yourself to do business, try to engage with Ukrainian IT talents. Get them into your organization. Try to understand what they are doing. Try to understand where they come from. Try to accommodate yourself in Ukrainian society. That's a super low key, very simple, low risk. That's the first thing you can do. The second you can do, you can start to plan, like you say, start to plan now what you want to be in 5 years. What kind of difference do you want your company to have in the world? What kind of make a difference, as we say, do you want to make with Ukraine? What part of history will you be on when the history is written? In 50 years or 100 years? I would advise you that you'll be in the part of the history that you made a difference to Ukraine, because you started early. You started to plan your projects, you started to discuss with trade partners. As I discussed with you, Bank, you started to understand the ecosystem of the energy sector, for example. They are trying out different business models and cash flow models, I would say, in Ukraine. And be part of that tryout. It doesn't cost much money. It costs interest and hours for you to understand what kind of part you can play in this. Both the try and fail sort of, because there will be a lot of it. But some of these will be super successful. And could you imagine having a Norwegian company in the most successful energy emerging markets of the world in our times? Because you were there in time. So that is my sort of recommendation. We have been working there for 15, almost 16 years now. There has been no corruption that we know of. We have not been compromised at all. Cyber attacks to Ukrainian companies is less by relative comparison to Norway and Germany for the time being. So it's quite safe. I wouldn't say because of the bumps and everything, but it's safe to do business in the right manner. So don't go wait for somebody else to fix it for you. Nobody will fix it for you. You have to do it by yourself. And our value proposal here in this event is that enter Ukraine with Itera. We know how to do it, we do it well, we make money, and we even grow the organization every day by employing new people, thanks to clients like you that ask for software development tips. So it works, but we would really like more support. to guide, like I talked to you about, how can we set up meetings with energy authorities and companies to explain to us what they're trying to do? Like you just explained. Do that in a sort of large scale. That would be very beneficial. So all of us can understand at the same time, not like one by one. So that's my recommendation, that we do this together. However, you have to take a stand and make a decision. I want to be part to make a change and make a difference. And it's all up to you. We call it corporate social responsibility. It's a low key, easy to do. It just takes a little bit of courage and a decision. And you can make that decision on the flight home tonight if you want to be part of history.
Having been here for a couple of days now and seen this from, if you take sort of the Norwegian private sector and business, let's say more bird's eye view, what is your impressions and what do you think our role can be? Can we play a role? And what do we need to do to bring this into action? Because we need action at some point.
Indeed we do. NHO represents 33,000 Norwegian companies in all relevant sectors, including energy, transportation, construction, and finance. Being here, I must say, on my personal note, I'm overwhelmed by the needs, and I'm thoroughly impressed by the focus, the bigness, the dynamics in making things happen. And to see the energy and feel the energy in the room and in the meetings with people is absolutely something I will bring back to the Norwegian corporate sector. Let me also say that the corporate sector, the private sector in Norway, we are fully supportive and not at least proud of the very clear mandate that has been given from the Norwegian Parliament to support Ukraine. The Nansen Fund is appropriate and we support it. As Christian very clearly stated to us all, it has three dimensions. One has to do with the military support. It's well developed, it's well structured, it's clearly coordinated through NATO, and as far as we understand, it works in accordance with our objectives. The second pillar is the humanitarian aid. We have well-developed humanitarian organizations. They are among the strongest and most experienced on the planet. They have experience from Ukraine, they have feet on the ground, and they work very effectively. The last pillar is the pillar that is the focus of this conference, rebuilding Ukraine. And that is the area where we need to do more thinking. We need to think intelligently how to get, to use the expression, bang for buck. I mean, how to maximize the effect of the financial funding that the Norwegian Parliament has decided to put forward in helping. And I would like to, I think we all appreciate the key arguments for coordination, but I would like to stress three key elements. One is pluralism, the other is well-functioning markets, and the third is the utmost importance in our ability to mobilize the private sector. When it comes to pluralism, all of us walking around here, we have met government representatives, we have met representatives for regional governments, and we have met representatives for local governments. I was very impressed by my meeting with the vice mayor of Odessa. He knew very well what he wanted to do in Odessa. And they had developed their plans, and he knew exactly what kind of companies he would like to have, and he knew what he needed to happen right now. He did not need a coordinating committee on government level or European level or I mean global level, he needs to get going because he has his population to take care of. And it's so important that we are able to do this in a way that supports that pluralism. Because in a very short period of time, we are re-establishing and fueling and accelerating important processes in Ukraine. And we need to do that very careful of the overall objectives, but also being dynamic enough so we can work together with people that really understands the needs and make things happen very quickly. And that has also to do with well-functioning markets. I think it's all the government representatives that I've heard on all levels have pointed out the need for restructuring the regulatory framework for the energy sector in Ukraine. I mean, it's not a secret. And the massive investments that needs to be done has to be done in conjunction with the reform of the energy sector. And do the government want less market or more market? Obviously more market. I mean, private investments, private sector dynamics into a well-functioning energy market closely linked to the European energy market. And we need to support that very effectively. And that leads me to the last point. The importance of mobilizing the private sector. You have probably heard on a global level, when we have these discussions about how to meet and support the sustainable development goals. I mean, the measure is that around 10% of the funding, 10% of the initiatives comes from public money, 90% will need to be private investments. So the purpose of public funding is to have a maximum multiplier effect of incentivizing private investments in the right projects, in the right way, at the right time. Exactly. And when we had discussions with representatives from Ukraine yesterday, we asked them, do you believe in the 1090? And they said, yes, but we think that the private sector must be significantly more than 90%. Significantly more. So and if we just imagine that 50% of 7 billion euros can have 3.5 billion euros can have a multiplier of 10, then you're talking. And we need to develop our thinking so that we can maximize that effect. We believe, of course, that EBRD and the World Bank are excellent institutions, but we also know that Exim, the Norwegian Exim, the Norwegian World Fund are also excellent institutions, closer to the market, closer to business, and perhaps even more dynamic and more market-oriented. So let's not fix this once and for all. Let's see that this is extremely complex and extremely important, but let's work together to develop our thinking so that we have maximum bang for the buck.
Can you give us some insight in exactly what is the work that's being done right now to how we actually shape the aid going forward? What is the timing? What are the key decision points? Can we expect new announcements will come when they come? I understand that, but give us some idea of how that process also is looking on kind of a timeline and involved parties.
Thanks so much, I would love to do that. First, a few comments to what has been said already by Ajek. Well, it's Russian, right? But anyway, that's Nordic, by the way. The same name as Helge. He was referring to Naftagaz. Be aware that one of the main contributors of Naftagaz via the EBRD is Norway, to make sure that Ukrainians don't freeze in the winter. That was the case last year, it will be the case this year. You're also referring to the coal-fired power plants. Well, we are well placed in Norway for the renewable sector. Build back better, build back greener. That's one of your big emissions too. I know you could go to Ukraine. We even contribute to nuclear safety. We're going to the nuclear industry. We're not big in nuclear power, quite to the contrary. But nevertheless, we also contribute to international efforts securing Ukraine's nuclear capability. So that's also an important point. But I think it's wonderful to hear that Norway is considered a good player, as you said. Excellent. Good reputation. I know in my business, I'm sure that's the case in your business, good reputation is wonderful. It's worth its well. It's more worth than heavy, basically. But of course, we do understand, the government understands, that that covering risk mitigation is of key importance to your business, to other businesses. Well, that's a point very well taken. Jon Erik, I appreciate your optimism. That's wonderful. Again, the digital sector, building back thing. That's what we're talking about. One shouldn't reconstruct the old coal-fired power plant. No. The IT, etc. So this is an opportunity, and that is the words of the Ukrainian government too. I know that this is an opportunity too, not to be pessimistic, but to be optimistic and to build back better. Bear in mind too that since February of last year, roughly 66,000 Ukrainians have immigrated to Norway. 66,000. Among them, several people who are well educated, enormously competent, resourceful. Norwegian business, you shouldn't wait, grab them, employ them, and they will be to the benefit of Ukraine and Norway, I'm quite sure, and your companies as well. 66,000 people immigrated from Ukraine, immigrated into Norway since last year, and probably it will be many more to come. Ida, you and I have discussed this many times. I appreciate what you say. I do agree with you. I'm impressed with the dynamics, the energy of the country. I certainly agree with you. And the enormous importance of the private sector, as you pointed out, as the Ukrainian government points out. The business of the government is not doing business, but what perhaps governments can contribute to, alone and together with international institutions, is to level the playing ground, to make it possible for business to thrive. That's the government. That's the business of the government. That will be done in many different ways. We've talked about some of them. Nobody has until now discussed the future membership of Ukraine in the European Union. The European Union heads of state and government will probably, acting upon the advice of the Commission, decide on Ukrainian membership talks in this December. Well, that's one way forward. But nevertheless, I can say that coming from a country outside the European Union, but perhaps one of the most useful things that the Ukrainian government can do is to live up to its EU commitments, leveling the playing field. That would be a wonderful charge forward. One of the, I dare say, the biggest recovery efforts looking into the future, that will be in the areas that are temporarily occupied by Russia. Think about the recovery and resilience and all the efforts that will have to go into that. That is just amazing. And even the best of organizations say that they know basically very little about what is actually happening in the occupied areas of Ukraine. A few humanitarian organizations are there, very few. That's very difficult. Even the International Committee of the Red Cross says that this is very difficult to have access. So that is an enormous challenge going ahead. Much more so than the reconstruction of the relief. Well, answering your question, Kjetil, about what's the future now for the government, as you will probably know, the government is now writing on a white paper to Parliament. It will be, well, some 60 pages or so, hopefully giving a useful analysis of what we're doing, what Ukraine is doing, what we're doing in the military side, civilian, humanitarian, as Ida also pointed out, and hopefully then pointing the way forward. It will certainly reconfirm the unanimous Parliament's decision to carry on with support to Ukraine. And then, of course, the key question, how to do it. That we will certainly continue our international efforts through multilateral organizations. However, we are, of course, looking at, the government is looking into how can one support, how can one contribute to that level playing field that would support the companies that are here present. Bear in mind that the first and foremost vision of the government is to listen into Ukrainian needs. and therefore also through multilateral organizations, but also bilaterally. And we have representatives of the US or embassy in Kiev here as well, and that will be their main task in the years ahead as well, in the months and years ahead. Well, covering, well, finishing up, I dare say I'm a former soldier myself. That was in peacetime though, and I believe I'm still a lieutenant of reserve. I dare say that I can wake up in the morning and think about the enormous suffering and sacrifice made by Ukrainians in the field. Nobody's touched on that because it was not the theme of this conference. But people are being killed daily, both on the Russian side and the Ukrainian side. And I dare say the Ukrainian people are enormously courageous.
Thank you.